And welcome to Light Years. I have a special guest joining me in Andy Lou's absence. I've brought in the person I consider most similar to Andy Lou, and that is Seth Partnow. Seth, how you doing, my man?
That might be the single meanest thing anyone has ever said to me.
I meant opposite. Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. So you wrote something on the Dunked On podcast last week, which is perfect considering the Warriors were starting a road trip against the Oklahoma City Thunder starting Monday, the 30th of January. You wrote about the Warriors' road woes, and I figured you're the perfect person to bring on right now. So the numbers are what they are. The Warriors are a beautiful 6-18 on the road right now going into the season. And I kind of just want you laid out the case. You laid out the data about just basically if you're not at least 500 on the road, the data doesn't suggest you're a contender. But before we get into that, I kind of want to ask you, why do you think the Warriors are so bad on the road? Because this is a team that's, and it's not the same parts, but the core of this team has won a road playoff game in every playoff series they've ever been in. It's always been kind of a defining quality of them. Last year, they won a road game in every playoff series. Why do you think they're not just bad on the road? They're maybe the worst team in the league on the road.
It's a great question, and it sort of ties into. I think I'm probably going to anticipate a question you have later here. Is the road stuff more or less concerning than kind of the overall kind of 500-ish record? And I don't know. They do not necessarily have the profile of a team that you would expect to be structurally better at home than on the road.
Not with this kind of split, for sure.
Yeah. Unless there's something you want to say about, like, I don't know, is there road stuff that has you've watched, all or most of the games? I've
watched them all, sadly.
Yeah. Have the road games featured an unusual number of like Draymond Green foul trouble games? That's like those are the kinds of only thing that I could think of that would. It's not like they're reliant on young players.
I have two data points for you, which at least partially play into this. So one, everyone knows about the 3-7 start, which had an 0-5 road trip with losses to the Detroit, Orlando, Charlottes of the world. Basically, the exact type of road trip you expect to go 4-1 on if you're a contender, right? Not good teams, and the rotation they used on that road trip got scrapped after said road trip because it wasn't working, most namely like James Wiseman getting minutes, Moses Moody getting minutes, and he hasn't gotten back into the rotation. Maybe he will, but who knows? They're playing JaMychal at the 4 next to Wiseman. So and the splits on that road trip were breathtaking. Like starting lineup plus 20 net, bench lineup minus 25 net, like the type of thing that's just absurdly insane. So like, if you take that 0-5 out of it, it's one thing. There's also the 1-5 road trip in December. So where Steph got hurt in the second game on the road trip and they just proceeded to lose that whole way out. They also had no Wiggins on that road trip. And if there's one thing we can say when you look at this team is they are kind of thin on the wing relative to Warriors team. So combine those two injuries on the second one and just a who knows what rotation. The first one, that's 1-9. You could say between those two, I'd say 1-10, but they did lose one of those games with Steph playing. So once you take that away, now you're talking like 5-9, 5-8, which is maybe more what you'd expect from this team on the road. Maybe closer to like, it's still not good. It's just, 6-18's. It's
dark.
I mean, yeah, that's like Wembanyama territory.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so. I think that gets us back to some of it, but as you said, they're even in controlling for that. And that was the first thing I looked at. Like, have they been significantly better in road games with Steph playing? No. Have they haven't really been? So some of that might be like we might call that the Wiseman portion of the season. Okay, that accounts for some of the gap, but even call it 5-10, a 33% team on the road. Even that is not a great resume for a playoff advancement type team. Like, I
Yeah.
think there's been one team, like, I want to say I don't think there's been any teams that have played that poorly on the road that have won a playoff series or in the
Yeah,
last 20 years.
the only teams I can think of tend to be teams that make mid-season moves that tend to ignite a different team, in which case, the data you have that shows that they were terrible isn't necessarily analogous to the team that's
Right.
riding into the playoffs, or like injuries is the other one, which is same
Right.
concept. I'm looking at it right now, like they're not shooting particularly worse on the road, 36.1% from three at home, 35.6% on the, so 0.5% difference there. There's not a tangible difference in that stuff. Draymond did say this. This is a quote from Kendra Andrews around Christmas time, right when they came home from that road trip where they just got, kind of beaten to death. Right now, I think we're very fragile. You start going through these things and you start believing them. Once you start believing them, it becomes who you are. The only way to break them is be mentally tough. I think this is a team that has struggled with the spirit perspective since the road trip began. It's a bit frustrating. You can make what you want of it being on the road versus being at home, but it's mental. It's a team struggling mentally, and that makes it hard to overcome anything else. So before I let you answer that, I do think the overarching theme is they're not defending. That's kind of always been the calling card, and I think it's cliche, but defense travels. Defense is one of those things where it's a little easier to ride through like the lumps that can come on the road if you can get a stop.
I buy all that. Like what Draymond is talking about, that's one of those things that this is sort of the danger area for someone who comes at this primarily from a statistical perspective. Is it's one of those things like I've been up and close and personal, and yeah, team spirit, whatever you want to call it, and spirit is kind of the buzzword in the NBA for playing with a particular kind of that is undoubtedly important. It's one of those things that I know it's important. I can't measure it. So I don't know. Is that something that's intrinsic to a team? Is it ephemeral and something they can get back? Or is it just the kind of thing that just means they're not good enough?
I was going to say the armchair psychologist might say that the Draymond punch in the preseason fractured the team. And defense is one of those things where it's like, it requires effort. It requires being on a string. And if you're not on the same page with each other and guys throw their hands in the air when another team goes on a run, because every team's going to go on a run, even if you do know how to defend, maybe that's part of it. I guess I'm asking questions here. I don't know, because it's like I'm trying to decide how much of this is fixable versus personnel issues, because fixable has to do with like we need to focus and clean up some things. Personnel issues is like Anthony Lamb is not capable of guarding Giannis because genetics and talent exist, right? So
I don't know. And that's sort of getting back to the, like, is the road record or the overall record more concerning? And, like it's one of those things that is this predictive, or are the Warriors just one of those teams that has a weird thing going on? I don't know. So I'll take it from a broader, not necessarily just the road. This is something that Mo Dakhil has been hitting on a lot. I think, especially for the Warriors, I think Kevon Looney is a better basketball player than Jordan Poole.
Sure.
And the Warriors are not deploying in terms of minute allotments, in terms of who's starting games. They are not playing as if that is true. And so that, in terms of fixable, that seems something that is fixable. Like, can you close with Looney? They in some of the games that they've played, they certainly can. But I don't know.
I don't think going small is the recipe for fixing the defense. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Given the lineup combo. So it does. I don't want to say it's a personnel issue, but like it is worth calling out. The reason Steve switched the lineup was basically they used two guys at center, Draymond and Looney, and and obviously there's going to be some overlap minutes where they play both of them together, but he didn't need those to be at the start of the quarter for rotation purposes. It makes sense, honestly, from that perspective, but I don't think they have the wing depth to play Draymond at center as much as they. It sucks because he's still very good at center, but you kind of need the right amount of size around him to make it work.
Yeah, and your lineup of 5 best guys has both of them.
True.
So, like
until there's a roster change. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think while understanding wanting to from a rotation standpoint, you also just want your best 5 guys on the floor as much as possible, and like bringing a guy off the bench does help to balance rotation in some way, but that also means Jordan Poole is playing more than Kevon Looney, and that's wrong.
But he was playing more than Looney when Looney was starting.
Yeah.
And some of that
I think that's also a problem, frankly.
But I think part of that is I don't know if Looney can play 30 minutes every game. He's had more hip surgeries than by the way, he's still 26. But yeah, I mean, he's clearly one of those guys where it's like the amount of injuries he's had over the year, and it's amazing. He hasn't missed a game in 2 years, but part of that is because he's probably a 20-minute per game guy, So maybe it does speak to, they're thin. Yeah. They could use another 20-minute per game guy.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I mean, I think that I think that's a combination of available personnel and personnel deployment issue. So yeah, I think it's.
What would you think about them starting Kuminga in Jordan Poole's place? Obviously, he's not better than Looney in terms of winning and losing today, but he fits the physical profile of the type of wing they want to put with Wiggins and Draymond in a small ball lineup. Whether he's there developmentally is a different question, but there's some positive signs.
I think in frankly getting him reps with the Draymond, Steph, Clay group can't hurt.
Right.
So yeah, that seems reasonable, but I think sort of the null hypothesis for sort of any of this stuff is I think it's like a Jimmy Johnson quote or something like that. It's Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's.
Right.
I think that's until proven otherwise. I think you start from there and say the first thing that fixes this is better players. And I think that if you wanted to, like, we can pick at like the road play, you can pick at the rotations, you can pick at anything else. They just need more dudes.
Yeah. They lost 2 of their main 8 dudes, 2 guys who played 20 minutes per game in the finals. And Dante's replacing one of them. Different type of player, but at least he's giving them 20 good minutes. And they haven't replaced the other. That's simple, And I'm just talking about the front 8. They also got good minutes from Bielitsa and some other guys throughout the season. Damian Lee played over 1,000 minutes for them. He was generally pretty good for them. Juan Toscano, same thing. So some of it is just losing productive minutes.
And I think that I think that's where we start the inquiry, because I think frankly when the Warriors have been good, like, you're winning games, you're up by 15. So the lull when you do some weird lineup stuff is okay. Well, now we're only up 7 instead of we're up 7. Now we did some weird lineup stuff and we're down 1.
True. Yeah. So definitely part of it. All right. They got 33 games left. They're 6-18 on the road. But the funniest thing is, they're 500, so is every team in the West from the 4 seed to the 13 seed, give or take a game or so in either direction. One, have you ever seen anything like the Western standings right now?
Nope. I wrote about this, 10 days ago or so. This is at that point in the season, like roughly a little bit over halfway, probably like 43, 44 games on average for every team. There were 18 teams that were on pace to win between 35 and 49 games. That's
Okay.
two more than there have ever been at that point in the season. There were only 5 teams that were on an under 35 pace, which is the lowest in the last 20 years by a couple teams.
By the way,
So,
also why trades are going to be impossible because no one's selling.
Yeah. No, this it was talking about why, like, the trade deadline is not just the plan, it's the fact that even outside of the plan, like, this is like the season where there's the worst best team and the best worst team, and
It's wild.
everyone's closer together. So no, I think we haven't really seen, and it's not even like, 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, I like the last 4 seasons have all been.
Well, we did 4 seasons and 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So
Last year when we had the really weird, like, November to January period when lineups were so in flux because of was it Omicron was it Delta? Was one of the variants? Like, we had a bunch of teams, like, we're not even having weirdness like that. It's just, there's a bunch of teams that are just in the middle this year.
Yeah. I mean, the topic du jour the last week is too much resting. And I'm sure some of that is part of it. Like, there's just more and more, okay, it's the Warriors, but no Steph and Draymond, that type of stuff going on. But, like, some of it's just, I think everyone's just kind of average.
I think we're really, I thought this was going to be the case last year, and it kind of was. The Warriors kind of came on and sort of, if I had to bet, last hurrah the dynasty, which sort of
that's enough.
But that sort of upended the overall, in that we are in a, the NBA history is sort of defined in dynastic terms, and we're sort of, even if the Warriors are pretty good, we are in the, like, that Warriors title team last year is, you would not put it in the same category as,
no, it's not in the 67 to 73 win, like, anything below 60 wins is disappointment. Yeah.
So we're kind of in this interregnum between, it was the Bulls, and then there's a little bit of a fallow period, then it was the Lakers, and then there was a little bit of a little bit of weirdness where, like, the Pistons were, like, in the Spurs were kind of trading stuff off, and then it was like the Celtics and Lakers again, and that got us to the Heatles, and then that got us to the Warriors, and we're sort of between again.
Yeah, it does feel like we're in a period of a bunch of parity, mostly because no one's great.
Yeah.
No one stands out. Even like the Celtics and Nuggets, who are running away, and will probably win 55 plus games. They don't have juggernaut vibes to me. They're good teams, but they're not juggernauts.
I mean, the Nuggets seem like they have the most potential to be thus.
Sure.
But,
there's still some things there, but
yeah. But the just as they keep having guys kind of get nicked up, that sort of is keeping them from really just, like, going on going on a 14-2 jag.
Sure. So yeah, like I said, 6-18. Give me your prediction for where the Warriors end with that road record. They have 17 road games left, predominantly West. They've taken care of their 2 large East Coast trips. They've played a good chunk of the East. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but their schedule, quite frankly, their schedule home and road is way more West heavy than anything. But yeah, the road games are definitely West heavy the whole way out.
I mean, I would think that they got 17 games left, like 7-10, 8-9, just like a little bit under 500. So that means they finish up, what is that, like 13-28. Still doesn't look very good, does it?
Yeah, they really only have one road game in the East the rest of the way. They go to Atlanta. It's mixed into a Memphis trip, which is I'm looking at the schedule here. It's a lot of Portland, a lot of Minnesota, a lot of Los Angeles, Oklahoma.
That's not, those aren't juggernaut teams, but those are also not, like, well, mark that as a W teams.
No, they're just like the Warriors. They're all 500 teams.
Yep.
Except for Houston. Anyway, but yeah, no. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where they end. I do think they have a run in them, but just given the fact that we're almost 50 games in and they're pretty much 500, like what does a run in the final 30 really mean? Does that mean they get to 46 and 36? You know, that's probably the high end of where they can get record wise.
I mean, you mentioned the thing that you kind of throw the previous record out of the window.
Mm-hmm.
They make a move.
True.
And like I have been fairly outspokenly critical of the 2 timelines thing, and I would like to renew that and say, hey,
well, you've come to the right place,
yeah.
my friend.
Now,
yeah.
I feel like the weird thing is the guy that could help them the most now is probably also the guy who could do the most for them in terms of going all in.
Shocking. The guy who actually plays has trade value. So,
but
that's a different conversation. Yeah. Like, did they bungle other guys' trade value by like, okay, but Steve Kerr won't play him, and that guy knows what he's doing as a coach. So why should I trade you anything of value for him?
Yeah. I mean, you can. I think absence sort of no, seriously, he's going to be great nonsense about Wiseman. I think, hey, he's hurt. He's sort of was developmentally behind, but he's talented. The problem is developmentally behind and Warriors basketball don't mix. Both because A, we're too good. B, the style of play is not
it's not for beginners.
Yeah, exactly. We play expert level basketball, and there have been the fact that Juan Toscano-Anderson can be a viable Warrior and Kelly Oubre can't.
Yeah. Whereas like how many of the other 29 teams, how many of them pick Juan over Kelly?
I mean,
one. I mean, ignoring contracts and everything.
I will also do I want either of them in my playoff rotation? And Juan seems like a better vibes guy on the bench, but that's not the question that's being asked. Really.
Yeah. All this points to, I'm trying not to get into that stuff because we're going to get into it a bazillion other times. But yeah, we got 8 days till that. 9 days. All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I do wonder if we throw out those 2 long, really disappointing East Coast trips, which they were just unprepared for a myriad of reasons, if they don't become more of a 500 team on the road the rest of the way. But it'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting. And there's still, you've always got best player in the series equity with Steph. And that is a powerful playoff weapon.
And guys who have been there before,
which is also important. Interestingly, there's basically been 2 teams that have made the finals without a ton of playoff experience. I think it's
Warriors.
The 14-15 Warriors.
They kind of skipped a step.
Yep.
And then they justified it with the next decade.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's like, oh yes, if you have 3 Hall of Famers, you can.
If we knew back then what they were, then we wouldn't have thought it was skipping a step. But yes,
3 early prime Hall of Famers and probably 1 Hall of Fame veteran in Iggy. Or the 2021 Suns, which was a little bit of a weird season in playoffs.
You can call it a fluke.
And B, you've also got one of the top floor general type guys of all time in CP3. So
we can get out of here on that one.
But yes, having that experience is a big advantage, I think, in terms of outkicking what would be their normal coverage in terms of playoff success.
All right, Seth. Well, I appreciate you.
Cool.
Tell people where they can find you.
Oh man, you can most relevant to Sam. You can find me and Mo. We're trying to do Wednesday nights, but we're kind of bouncing around a little bit on playback. You can read some of my stuff on Dunked on Prime, and it's got a mock trade deadline sale going. Listen to me on Nerder at The Athletic, and I've also got the coming up soon the infamous update of the player tiers for midseason this is coming up soon.
Oh, it's my favorite when you set the timeline on fire. All right, Seth. Appreciate you, sir.
Thanks a lot.